Fantastic. Okay, back to English again. Our next guest is Nick Cook. Nick Cook is joining us online from Capgemini Engineering. Nick is gonna share some thoughts, his view, his work on this topic. He is the digital twin lead hybrid intelligence at Capgemini Engineering. And Nick's presentation, I think we have the title here. Hi, Nick. Good to see you. Digital twin plus data science, a catalyst for organizational innovation. There is so much to it and so much within it, right? I went through the synopsis of your presentations and I was quite dazzled. You know, so many hot topics and pillars of your talk. So I'm not going to go into it. There's take the stage, man. Help me here. It's so complex for me.
Thank you very much. Yes, plenty to be covering this afternoon. Conscious I've only got 20 minutes, so this is going to be a nice high-level introduction, just to plant a few seeds in everyone's mind. So first of all, afternoon, everybody. Many apologies that I can't be with you all today. Travel restrictions. So I'd like to talk a little bit this afternoon about digital twin. And I know this is a really hot topic at the moment. There's plenty of hype around it in industry. And I'm aware that there've been several speakers at this forum who have spoken about it over the last few years as well. But most of those sessions have really come from the technology perspective, looking at solutions and tooling. And what I want to do is really focus a little bit more on the organizational impact of digital twin. And of course, given our shared context today, its connection with data science capabilities. So digital twin is nothing new. It's been around for many years, but it's really only risen to prominence over perhaps the last 4 or 5. And I think that's because commodity IT infrastructure, compute and memory and tooling has opened up our ability to model and simulate and interrogate the world around us in higher and higher resolution. The digital twin market itself across industry continues to undergo very rapid evolution, and more vendors are exploiting the hype that there is around digital twin. But as they do that, we're also starting to see a maturing in thinking of approaches of many digital twin consumers, and particularly those early adopters who, having established their digital twin frameworks already, are now beginning to understand the next phase of their exploitation and the added value that that is going to bring into their business. Okay, let me try sharing again. Okay, is that better? Fantastic. Sorry about that, everybody. So as I was saying, in my experience, through discussions with a number of organizations, both large and small scale, that next stage of exploitation that they're looking at is invariably centered around organizational structure and culture, and the changes that digital twin adoption is bringing to their entire business. And it's this that I really want to offer some early insights into today, as I said, just to plant some seeds in your own minds if you are already embarking or you're about to start embarking on your own digital twin journey. And of course, it's easy for me to sit here and share my observations, my thoughts, my ideas, and perhaps come across as a bit esoteric or aspirational. So as we move forward over the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to try and ground my comments in real world experiences from digital twin practitioners across a range of different industries to demonstrate that this is actually the here and now. This is what people are saying and doing today. And here's the first of those. It's from Lee Hodder, who is a VP at Shell. And he's really talking about the impact digital twin has had on their overall digitalization journey. So digital twin, no matter what form they take are driven by data. And of course, that data comes from a multitude of different sources. And as we all know from our own experiences, that means the data is usually stored across multiple different solutions using different data structures, formats, and naming conventions, and very often is managed to different levels of quality control. And anyone who's been around data management for as long as I have knows that there have been numerous game-changing paradigms trying to solve this problem. From data marts to data lakes, we've seen data virtualization solutions, semantic web, and of course, most recently, the emergence of things like label property graph, data mesh, and data fabrics. And all of these solutions are great and solve the problem as we perceived it at the time that they were devised. But all of them still require us as data scientists, or through collaboration with our data engineering teams, to bring the data we need together into some coherent representation of our investigation context. And this approach, this very traditional approach, reflects many of the early forays we saw into digital twin, where people were essentially building a data-driven model based on what they had available. But for me, that kind of misses the point of what digital twin is. Because if the data we have is erroneous, if it's incomplete, if it's unrepresentative of my real world scenario, how can it be a robust, trustworthy twin that's appropriate for operational decision making? And of course, that's a large part of what digital twin is really for. So adoption of digital twin has really forced organizations to rethink their entire approach to data exploitation. And that touches on 2 points for me. Firstly, it moves us away from the question of what data exists that helps my work to a question of what data do we need to support our work, which of course leads on to questions about how we get that data, what value there is in that data, because of course there's going to be an investment in getting hold of it, and so on. And I think pragmatism is key here. We rarely need everything, even though everything about what's important and why. And of course, there's inherent business value in asking that question, regardless of whether we're talking about digital twin or not. And secondly, it leads to a conversation about our interactions with data itself. How do we know what exists? How do we discover new content? How do we access and utilize it? What do we do with our outputs? If we focus on that utilization question for a minute, how is the data delivered? What pre-processing is required before it's usable in our data science scenario? And what are the risks associated with its cleansing if we need to do that? How do we ensure that the data we are using is being interpreted correctly and, most importantly, consistently in different usage scenarios? And what we're starting to see, therefore, is a move towards the digital twin becoming the central interface to an organization's data. In essence, the digital twin is the data model. And this kind of makes sense because suddenly your data is structured and accessed in an intuitive way that represents your business's core concepts and the relationships between them by directly reflecting what people are expecting to see and therefore what they're familiar with, whether that be a pump that you're maintaining or perhaps a distribution network you're trying to optimize, or maybe even something like surgery you're planning on a sick patient. And in doing this, we're moving away from this idea of having to engineer queries across multiple databases, manually linking concepts together based on naming conventions, or predicting when two values relate to the same property of something between different systems. Instead, we're querying our virtual environments directly, be that via a programmatic interface, a dashboard, or perhaps even an augmented reality environment, using intuitive terms and constructs that reflect our working environment. We might get instantaneous feedback from that. We might need to take the data and process it, but we are doing so from within a situationally aware context, not through a generic or arbitrary multi-join query to a database that's just been normalized within an inch of its life and has no actual real link to what we're seeing in reality. And so all of these ideas are nicely encapsulated in this little soundbite from the chief executive at City Zenith. Now, City Zenith are a company that specialise in developing built environment digital twin solutions. And the thing I take away from this is the emphasis that he places on data accessibility and its usage immediately within a consumer's context. So I noted a couple of minutes ago that the data that drives our twin is often caught up in historical architectural decisions. And very often we find that these are correlated with functional boundaries within a business. There may be asset information hosted in an asset management system owned by the asset management department, procurement information about those assets in a financial package owned by finance, and service schedule information held within a maintenance team. Now, typically as data scientists, we cut across these organizational boundaries, consuming data from each of the different functions, but also relying on subject matter expertise and tacit knowledge that's available within those functions to help us interpret, utilize, and get the most out of the data that we're consuming. And of course, most of us have encountered the inefficiency and frustration that often comes with this model, whether that be through project delays, below expectation delivery, or missed opportunities. But I don't think it has to be this way. And digital twin is starting to look like it provides a catalyst for some change here. Now, several organizations with relatively mature digital twin solutions are now starting to describe how they are restructuring their workforce, breaking away from these traditional functional departments and instead building multidisciplinary teams, bringing subject matter expertise and specific capabilities together from across the business to support a digital twin or perhaps a fleet of related twins. In doing so, the business is building this idea of a virtual capability center that focuses on its core assets or its core processes and focuses on providing optimal insights into those assets to deliver maximum value or return on investment from them in a timely, often in the moment kind of way. Just as you kind of would for a maintenance team responsible for the real world equivalent. Now, data science capabilities are no different here. Data science focuses on individual or related twins, but now you have potential as a data scientist to access subject matter expertise, data management and engineering skills without the traditional political and logistical barriers that you might otherwise traditionally have faced. But there's a second equally important consideration here, okay? And that relates to the nature of the relationship between a business who's implementing a twin and its suppliers. Now, particularly for large-scale digital twins, power plants, enterprise logistical management systems, maybe financial transaction processes, and so on, many organizations have realized that there's no single point solution and no single supplier, even among the top global service companies, who can provide all of the capabilities that are required to deliver a digital twin solution on their own. And so these businesses are having to evolve their engagement model with their suppliers to reflect this. Now, interestingly, a couple of energy companies, Shell and BP, have both been very open about the challenges that this has presented over recent years. And they describe their journey away from transactional buy procurements towards co-innovation relationships with their suppliers, often expecting their suppliers who would traditionally compete with one another to join forces and deliver a shared solution. They also describe evolution from buying a solution to buying a capability, and also their evolution internally away from developing technical capabilities to one of solution integration rather than solution creation. And we're starting to see similar trends emerging elsewhere as well. So here in the UK utility sector is very interested in these kind of ideas. We're seeing this kind of collaborative relationship develop through the national power distribution network, people like National Grid, and through water supply companies, through incentives that are starting to emerge from our national regulators. And just to illustrate this, but in particular, my initial point around internal organizational structure, I'm highlighting a quote from a top strategist at Equinor. For those who don't know, they're an oil exploration company up in Scandinavia, who presented this at a digital transformation conference over the summer. Okay, so why is all of this so important in a data science context? Well, for me, simply, it's a question of efficiency. If you have readily identifiable data in formats that you can use with minimal engineering and support from experts around us, we can maximize our return on data science investment. We can get things done quicker, we can do it more accurately, and we can do it with fewer errors. We naturally also have more confidence in our results because not only is our data and our methods, but the context in which they're being generated and inherently used is transparent and well understood. But I think there's actually more to it than that relatively simple high-level answer. And I believe there are two opportunities here that organizations can capitalize on. First is around attracting and retaining the best data science talent. Now, I was talking to a colleague recently, and he noted that the generation of data scientists that we are now interviewing and recruiting into our organization are for the first time ever what we call digital natives. They're as confident and adept in the virtual world as they are in the real world. And for many of them, we're starting to see the boundaries between those two things becoming increasingly blurred. So whether it's through social media platforms, online gaming, or perhaps even extracurricular social or ethical outreach activities, these people are used to readily available, convenient access to information, data, and other content, often through very rich immersive experiences. Now, if you imagine them bringing them into an organization and explaining that they need to get permission to access a data set from someone down the corridor, or that they need to write a SQL query but then throw half the results away because the content is miscalibrated, although it hasn't been labeled as such, and suddenly that exciting data science role that they've accepted starts to look a little bit less attractive. And unfortunately, that's the reality of what we see in many of the experiences around people that approach us. But what if we could offer more? What if we could offer a virtual environment where all, or at least most, of the legwork has already been done, and your data science talent can let their creative juices flow? They can exploit the latest AI techniques or develop new intuitive visualizations that explain complex data narratives. How much more appealing does that sound? How much more additional value are you going to get and achieve from your data science teams through new techniques and enabling new ways of working? And of course, how much more sustainable does your environment make your talent retention over the coming years as well? The second opportunity, and the one that's actually much closer to my own heart, is the idea of data democratization. And here we want to empower everyone, not just our highly trained data scientists, to create value from the data that the organization holds through application of their knowledge and experiences of the real world twin, without needing to learn, complex technologies, SQL, Sparkle, Tableau, or whatever it is your organization has adopted. So here, the digital twin, with its context-aware data model and convenient, intuitive access to data, allows any user to discover content, potentially download it and play with it, even if that be, God forbid, in Excel. It may not be hardcore AI. It may not even be advanced statistical analysis. But if it plants a seed of an idea or hints at a finding that could be followed up with more powerful approaches, isn't that just as valuable? But again, please don't take my word for it. Here's a thought from an innovation strategist at Aker BP, the Norwegian energy exploration company. And no, it's no coincidence here that that these are one of the main competitors to Equinor, who I quoted earlier. And that's because there's a real digital twin arms race going on within the North Sea energy companies. My highlight here, and the reason for using this example, is this idea of being able to facilitate curiosity. So let me just try and bring all of this back together again, okay? Fundamentally, what I'm advocating is that the digital twin experience is about more than just technology and technical solutions. That will get you so far. It's essentially an evolution of the traditional modeling and simulation approaches most of us are already very familiar with. But what digital twin offers from my perspective is an opportunity to rethink your exploitation of those models and simulations. Now, that may be at a small scale, through a twin of an individual pump or a financial approval process, or at the national level through, for example, a twin of a power distribution network, as we're starting to see emerge. But at all of these scales, there's potential to innovate within your business. And I think for the first time ever, it really gives us the opportunity to deliver a truly data-driven organization with data and data science, and therefore you and me justifiably at its heart. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was definitely clarifying, although still, I must admit, very complex, because it's kind of a few presentations ago, we were talking about small data. Before, we were talking about the fact that the genie is out of the bottle, will not go back to the bottle. So we're just piling up and mounting up, new concepts, new complexities. I think your presentation is quite clear when you explain this mix of the natives with the digital twin. It's not a question of technology. It's then again a question of mindsets, of culture. It's definitely a very challenging topic, very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. We got to rush. We would be here for a while for sure. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time for sure, and we'll be sharing your presentation with our audience online early next week. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nick. Okay.